everybody. I hope you're having a great day today. I know it's been a bit of a minute since I posted a video. Just got busy with work, busy with the holidays, everything else. But now finally have a little bit of time to create some new content for you. So I hope to get onto a more regular schedule. So I'm going to get some help with these videos. And that way we get a more reliable cadence in terms of when you can expect to see content. For today, we are going to be discussing buying and selling motorcycles. So I'll be sharing my experiences with purchasing my first motorcycle, and specifically buying a used motorcycle. So buying from a private seller. And if you happen to be selling a motorcycle, I'll also be sharing my experiences selling that bike as well. If you've seen some of my other videos, I have talked about my first bike. It was a 2010 Honda Shadow RS. I purchased that as my learner bike, and I also sold it once I got my hands on this bike. If you're watching this video now, it is December, the end of 2020. And now is actually, depending on where you live, of course, now might actually be a great time to purchase a bike. It's not really riding season. It's cold, not as many people are on the road, and so those who are selling bikes are probably going to want to get rid of them. So depending on where you live, now might be a great time to buy. So if you're looking at purchasing, keep an eye out. You never know when a good deal, that perfect bike is going to come up for sale. Selling points are usually at the end of the riding season and right before the start of a riding season. So right before the start of a riding season, demand goes up, so prices are also probably going to go up a little bit higher. Sellers know that the bike is probably going to get sold around what they're asking for, and so they may not be as willing to negotiate at the start of a riding season versus the end of the riding season. But again, it's all contextual. It depends on where you live. Where I'm at in California, even though it's been rainy, you can see the roads are a little bit wet. It's still my riding season anyway. I'm never not riding unless the weather is, really absolutely horrible. But the first step in purchasing a used motorcycle is to know what you want to buy. Know what you're looking for. Do some research. First, you gotta really understand, are you looking more for a sport bike? Are you looking more for a cruiser? How strong of a bike do you want? Do you want like a 300? Do you want a 750? Do you want like a 1100, 1200, whatever? Know what you're looking for, because that is going to refine your search criteria and make it easier to find the right bike. If you don't know what you're looking for, I recommend browsing around, again, doing some research, really understanding the different dynamics between sport bikes versus cruiser bikes versus naked bikes versus touring bikes, so on and so forth. Otherwise, you're going to get overwhelmed with the number of options out there, and it's going to be significantly harder to find the right bike for you. This also means you should have an understanding of what your price point is. What is your budget? This way you can immediately write off things that are in budget. What's a good kind of a market price for a bike? Now, the prices are going to be a little bit more subjective. Some are going to be higher, some are going to be lower. But have a good market value price in mind. In general, I recommend to go for bikes that are within 5 years, 5 to 8 years, I would say, depending on the type of bike. Ideally under 10 to 15,000 miles. That's going to be a pretty good sweet spot. That's where, when I was doing my research, a lot of the bikes were within that range. Of course, there were some that are like way out of that range, and there were some that were a year old. So obviously, newer bikes are going to go for more, older bikes are going to go for less. But again, it's all contextual. It really depends. Once you have an idea, start browsing some different postings. So the second step is to look at various sources from where people put up postings. So what worked for me, I did a lot of research on Craigslist. I looked at Facebook Marketplace and Cycle Trader. Cycle Trader got me some good ideas for what is the availability of certain bikes. A lot of the bikes I found were from dealers, so that's also an option, is to buy a used bike from a dealer. But Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist were definitely the primary two resources I used if I'm trying to purchase from a private seller. I actually ended up buying my first bike, the 2010 Honda Shadow RS from Craigslist. I found a posting there, reached out to the guy, and we went from there. So browse around. Don't be in too much of a hurry to buy a bike. Don't get too excited and overly commit to one type of bike. That was a mistake that I did, and I got really excited about the 2010 Honda Shadow RS, got super stoked, really excited about it, almost to the point where unless the bike was not functional, I would pretty much buy it. And that was a mistake I made, and I overpaid for that bike. So don't get too excited, and be willing to negotiate more and be willing to let a bike pass if it's too far out of your budget. So look around, use some resources, check every day, create some alerts, because you never know when that really great bike is going to get posted, and sometimes it can be gone within a week or even days if it's a really good deal on a really popular bike. The next thing you want to do is step 3. Once you have found a potential bike, you want to reach out. So reach out to that seller. And this is almost when that first interaction, that interview process begins. So when you're buying a bike, you're not just buying a bike, but you're also determining, is this seller trustworthy? Is this someone I want to make a purchase from? Different riders treat their bikes differently. And so you're also gauging, has this person probably taken responsible care of the bike, or was this person probably treating the bike really harshly, didn't really take care of it, and now it's got some issues and they're trying to sell it and get rid of it? Ask some questions. You want to learn about the bike as much as you can. And you want to minimize the number of surprises that could happen just because you didn't ask the right questions. So in my experience, for every 5 people I would reach out to, only 1 would respond to me. So don't get your hopes too high on one bike and one seller. Reach out to different people if you find multiple potential bikes. So when you're evaluating the post, you want to make sure, are there multiple pictures of the bike from different angles in good lighting? You don't want to be taking a look at old, crummy, low definition, hard to see, dark photos where you can barely tell if there's even a motorcycle in the picture. You want to have a very clear picture so that way you can really look and see, are there any obvious imperfections with the bike? How was the bike posed? Have they cleaned the bike? Does it look to be in pretty good condition? Look at the seat, look at the pipes, look at the handlebars, look at the paint, look at everything, the tires. Look at everything as much as you can from those pictures. A good seller is going to provide multiple pictures, if in the posting, upon request. Have they described the bike, the miles, the condition of the bike? Is it up to date? Do they have a title in hand? Has the bike ever been dropped? Those are all critical things that you want to look for. Now, if a bike has been dropped and a seller is honest about it, I actually take that as a good sign. Dropping a bike isn't an immediate no for me. If a bike's been dropped and it was low, like you dropped it when you were parking or whatever, that's not a big deal. So if it seems that the posting is pretty transparent and there is good information in there, there's information about any modifications, when the last thing was serviced, has it been professionally inspected, those are all good signs. If a posting has a lot of great information in there about the bike, about how it was ridden, so on and so forth, that's a pretty good sign. If you just have a posting that says for sale, no lowballers, blah blah blah, you're taking a gamble on that bike at that point, and the seller. So you can still reach out by all means, but I wouldn't get my hopes up for those types of postings. A good seller is going to put effort into their posting, and they're going to want to make sure that the bike gets in a pair of good hands. So then the next thing, step 4, is reach out to the seller. So as I mentioned, for every 5 people I reach out to, I might get a response back from 1 person. So don't get your hopes up on one particular bike or one particular seller. Reach out to multiple people and have some questions prepared. So if there's any information that is not in the posting, this is a great time to ask those questions. And be polite, there's people too. So say, hello, my name is blah, blah, blah. I found your posting on this site, and I'm interested, and I'd like to inquire about seeing this bike, and I do have some questions. Sometimes you can also ask questions that are also in the post just to kind of test them, to make sure that the information remains accurate over time. One also good thing to understand is the bike still being ridden? If they give very detailed answers, that's always a good sign. It means them being forthright and transparent with the bike. Also ask if there's any damage done to the bike. And if they share all the little things that are going wrong with the bike, that's a good sign. If they take the bike somewhere for you to see it, then the bike's going to be warm, and that might mask some issues. A cold bike is going to reveal any potential issues. A bike that's warmed up is going to be able to hide that. It's going to have an easier time starting and riding. So ideal scenario is you can meet up at their house, meet up at their garage, ask them to leave the bike cold, ask them to not start the bike, and again, ideally leave the bike where it is normally kept. One thing you should also do prior to meeting is pre-negotiate the price of the bike. So if someone's saying, hey, I'm going to sell this bike for $5,000, and you reach out to them saying, hey, I'll buy it for you for $4,200 or $4,200, and they say, great, sounds good, come over and buy the bike. You should go over there with $4,200 in hand, but you should also set the precedent of, if there's any surprises, if there's anything I don't like, I may ask for a lower price. So set that expectation. And this is where, again, you still got to trust your gut. Something seems off, you got to make a judgment call if you think it's worth the risk or not. But sometimes you can ask them the same questions again, just to make sure that their answers are consistent. Check the odometer, start the bike up, make sure it runs, make sure it sounds good when it starts up. What I did was I looked at YouTube videos of that specific bike starting up, so I have an idea of what it should sound like, if it's, again, assuming it's stock and there aren't any major modifications to it. Listen for sounds. Use all of your senses, sight, smell, hearing, possibly touch, depending on if you feel anything weird like in chips, or if anything doesn't feel right as you're riding it. Don't know about taste, but who knows? You do you. And then with money in hand, most sellers are going to allow for a test ride. Common convention is if you drop the bike, you buy it. So be careful, don't ride out of your limits. It's helpful to know the surrounding area, but if you don't go too far. You don't want to buy a bike that you didn't actually end up wanting to buy, just because you rode out of your limits and dropped it. So as you're riding, you can check the condition of everything. Does all the, or before you ride, do your T-clocks, do the lights work, the tires, are the tires still within spec? Are they still within their lifespan? Check the levers, your clutch, your brake. Do there seem to be scratches on those? If there's pretty obvious signs that the bike was dropped, then that's a sign that you probably shouldn't trust that seller. But again, if they're being forthright that the bike was dropped, then yeah, that's to be expected. It may be beneficial to have, if you have a friend that is an experienced rider, let them do the test ride, because they'll have better judgment in terms of something seems off or not. The next step is to make an evaluation on if you are going to purchase this bike or not. If they try to force you into making a deal, that's another red flag, that's another bad sign. But if you are going to purchase the bike, congratulations. Go with it. When I sold my bike, the guy tried to ask for a few $100s off for gas, for this, for that. I was like, no, dude, it's your bike. It's your responsibility to fill up the gas. The next step is to do all the paperwork. So in California, it's typically just the title that you sign over. But I've always recommended to also do an additional bill of sale, just as a double measure. One thing I did completely forget about, before you do the test ride, inspect the title. Assuming that the title is all good, you go to a test ride, everything's good. then that is when the seller will sign over the title to you. So let them take a picture of my driver's license, and I also take a picture of their driver's license, again, just to make sure that everything is good to go. The bike's basically yours at that point, so the only other thing you got to do is to take the paperwork to the DMV. If you're an inexperienced rider, I recommend load up the bike, borrow a truck, or if you have a truck, use your truck, you get a ramp, and load up the bike that way. I would not recommend taking an unfamiliar bike on unfamiliar roads home. Do be prepared to pay taxes on the bike, pay for any registration. So I'm going to wrap it up here, everybody. I hope you sincerely have a great rest of the year. I hope you get started on 2021 on the right foot. Again, have that positive mindset. 2020 has been a hell of a year for everybody. I know for some of you it's been harder. It's been rough, and things won't magically get better just because it's 2021, but hopefully we're making progress in the right direction, and a lot of it kind of starts up here in your head. So with that, be brave, everybody, do good, take care of yourselves. Peace.